Tips from Trestle is brought to you by Wiseox AI, the Dining with Dementia Workshop, and the 100% Leader. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. In this episode of Tips from Trestle, we're diving into a part of the resident experience that often gets overlooked: how people living with dementia actually connect with the world through reading. I met Nikki Jardin and Laurette Klier at the Eden Alternative Conference, and after hearing just a bit of their story, I knew I had to get them on the show. Nikki is the founder of Mirador, a dementia-friendly magazine, and Laurette is the founder of Nana's Books, an adaptive book series designed for people living with brain change. Together, they've created Mindful Libraries, a collaboration that brings their books and magazines into beautiful, dementia-inclusive reading spaces in senior living communities and beyond. Their work was born from deeply personal caregiving journeys, supporting loved ones with young onset Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia who suddenly couldn't enjoy the newspapers, magazines, and novels that had always been part of their lives. In our conversation, we explore what happens when we redesign reading for the changing brain, from fonts and layout to thick paper and nostalgic content that invites conversation instead of testing memory, and how the Mindful Libraries concept can turn a simple reading nook into a hub for real, organic connection. So as you listen to this episode, I wanted to challenge you to think about how activities might have you reimagining your own library shelves. Let's get into it. Nikki, Laurette, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to talking to you about Mindful Libraries and getting your story. But I want to let everybody know we met here at the Eden Alternative International Conference. You're good friends with one of my partners, Carrie Albert's Dementia Darling, and we just got to talking about what you're doing, and I got to see the magazines and the books, and I thought, okay, this is a story we need to tell, especially when we talk about resident experience. But we got to start at the beginning, right? So your origin stories, if you will. So you both came to doing what you're doing through some really deeply personal experiences. So Nikki, you saw the gap in reading materials from your aunt. Laurette, you built Nana's Books because you were supporting spiritual and emotional well-being for those living with dementia. And so how did each of your individual whys shape what you're doing? What surprised you about that need that's out there?
Yeah, so I was taking care of my aunt. I was the primary care partner to my aunt Rebecca, who had young onset Alzheimer. She was diagnosed just after her 63rd birthday. And one of the things that I noticed pretty early on was that she was not able to read the magazines that she really enjoyed reading. She loved the Smithsonian and National Geographic and Oprah magazine, and they were just piling up. And normally she'd been cruising through them and sharing stories from them, and she just wasn't really able to do that anymore based on the longer stories. The text was problematic. And so I went searching for dementia-friendly publications, and I was really surprised, really surprised that there weren't, not only were there not any magazines, but there were barely any adaptive text reading materials out there at all. There were some large print books. Large print books are not the same as dementia-inclusive.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't really a lot out there. And I was fortunate that I had some good aspirational experience and some experience on magazines. I was a managing editor for a local publication. And so it was a comfortable fit.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was, so along with a graphic designer and a friend, we started working on what ended up becoming Mirador. Started working on it in 2019. First issue came out in 2021.
Yeah. And Laura, you have Nana's Books.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how that came about. I'm guessing similar in this vein.
Yes, very similar in a way. So my mother-in-law was living with Lewy body dementia in Massachusetts, and we live in Connecticut. And we would go visit with her, and she was becoming despondent and dispirited, and just was an avid reader. So she was no longer reading. She loved her daily papers. She loved her Boston Globe, her Patriot Ledger, large print fiction, and that was all taken away from her because of her cognitive change. So she was living in assisted living, and she was, again, as I said, much more so during COVID. She became very despondent, and I just decided I was a former educator and a great writer, and I was initially a first grade teacher. So I was teaching people how to read and adapting books to accommodate the space between their current ability and their interests. So I was taking texts like X-Men comic books and modifying them and changing the formats so the child could find success on their road into reading. Okay. So now, fast forward 30 years, when I'm with my mother-in-law, I thought, can I adapt some books or some reading that would bring her some joy? So I decided to focus on her childhood neighborhood of South Boston. And she had the Irish heritage. And so I made a book of Irish wit and wisdom, and I'll just put it in my little manila folder and went to visit her, brought my twins. And we had such a robust, beautiful conversation that we just laughed wildly. And we really started to get to know her through the prism of dementia and through these books. And that's how our story began. But I was always looking for means with which to connect with people and to help people to be their best selves in that moment. So whether it, let's say, is a hymnal or for veterans or careers, anything that can bring me back to me is job one and the goal. So Nikki and I met on LinkedIn, I think. Yeah. And we just, our missions are so aligned, and we talk practically every day about, we're passionate about texts and new formatting and new things that are happening in the dementia space, and what we can do to make our stuff as inclusive and as beautiful and as resonant as possible. So here we are.
Yeah, and it's a great segue because I wanted like that in looking at your websites and learning more about what you're doing together. There was like this moment it all clicked for you guys. So you guys were at the National Association of Activity Professionals conference in Reno, and then both of your sites, like it's an immediate like coming together. Right? You met already on LinkedIn, but now it's like you're together. Boom, it all happens. And so, what was it about that meeting when you were together in person that really made you think we need to collaborate? We need to do something. We're doing good things, but we want to do something great and come about this idea of the mindful library.
I think one of the cool things about reading in person was actually seeing all of our stuff together. Laurette's books are absolutely beautiful, and paired with the magazine, like we hit the whole spectrum. I think my publications are a little bit more designed for people maybe of MCI, early onset, younger onset, and Laurette has beautiful books, Mike review, and late stage. And like seeing the publications together, it was pretty magical to sort of to not only see that the missions were aligned, but the care in which we presented our publications were also Mirador. We have a very thick paper. We take a lot of time to make the images, and everything look really nice for our readers. And Laurette did the same. And so when I was trying to find something back in 2017, 2018, there wasn't really anybody doing this. We're in 2026, and there still aren't a lot of people. And when you meet somebody whose mission is as deeply aligned, and the quality of what they're also doing meets that part. That's special. That's exactly
just clicks.
We're so fortunate. We are both really deeply into the discernment piece, which means that people that are living with a dementia, they're acutely aware of their changes. They're living in the metacognition. They're thinking about their thinking, and they're understanding that there are losses along the way. Maybe they can't articulate that anymore. So what I love so much about Mirador, and I feel that I try to do as well with Nana's books, is that there's depth of field, there's arts, there's culture, there's just a vista into the wider world, and we both get that. We get it, and whenever there's something, we're very iterative. So whenever there's something that comes along that's new and that's great, we can make the experience better. for our readers and for the care partners, we're all in. Like we're on the phone, we're figuring it out. Sure. There are things we're digitizing. We're completely digital. We have digital and print libraries, and print is our passion because that's something that Fidelity is so resonant with elders because it's what they've known from for all their lives. So we really respect that and we really honor that. And then, hey, if you want to put up our books or magazines and our engagements up on the Roku TV in the community room, and then people want to have the books in their hands as well, super. What we really love is people to have their books and their magazines and their newspapers at their elbow, in their rooms, on their coffee tables, anywhere they relax and gather. They want to get up in the middle of the night like we all do and read for a little bit. That's job one. That's what we're so passionate about people having autonomy, and they choose and they decide, and it's something that belongs to them. It's not part of the program.
I love that. It was that idea of the collaboration that really triggered this whole conversation for me. And when you think about building mindful libraries, you set it up as a nonprofit initiative to put everything together to create that full inclusive library for those living with dementia. So you've already maybe started to answer this question, but kind of take me to the spot where you went from we should do something together to, hey, we have this. Now let's kind of get it out there for everybody.
Sure. So we work with nonprofits. We're not a nonprofit, but
okay.
So what we do is we make it lift very gentle for the care partner because they've got enough on their plate already. Even people that are doing this, they're thought leaders or people that are working in communities and they're making these decisions. We are the Gift Up platform, so you can, if you're living with a dementia, you're not ordering the books for yourself generally. So this way you can gift it to your neighbor, gift it to your dad, gift it to the senior center, or you can purchase it. And then we also have crowdfunding, so we can help you with that together because funding is always a perennial issue for everybody. So we try to make that as simple as possible for people. We're super gently priced, and we really believe in the a la carte model to much to our own financial destinies. So we've democratized reading again. We don't like when people commodify something that we've been doing all of our lives and that we love so much and it's so monumental to our humanity. Wow, look at me getting deep here at lunchtime. So yes, we adore this work and we know when we see people just like us that we're on the right track. And so to get it into people's hands is really important to us.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed as you guys were handing me the magazine and the books and I was looking through it is the design. That's very intentional. You guys have been looking at it from not the clinical perspective, but they look and feel like regular, quote unquote, regular books and magazines. And so explain to the listeners why that's so important and kind of how you balance the aesthetic of that to the actual accessibility that you've accomplished with it.
That's a great question. And it was job one, really, I think, for both of us, is to really create a publication that people walk around with, like you said, just like a magazine, because it is. It is just a magazine. It is just a book. I do want to shout out Innovations in Dementia, as well as the Deep Guide in the UK, because it was really their work that they brought in people living with dementia, care partners, scientists in the field, and got a group of people together and basically started looking at formatting on the page.
Yeah.
How can this page be designed in a way that makes it more accessible for people living with brain change? So I always like to shout them out because they were really helped first.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of different things that go into it. There is color contrast. There is the large print. There is the font, and I'll talk about that in a second. I know let's talk about that. There's the font. There is bordering. There is chunking. There is dictive layout. There is all sorts of elements that go in using really beautiful illustrations that are fine art as opposed to cartoonish images. There's photographs that can be used instead of loose images because it is easier for people living with brain change to discern fine art and photographs than it is to have essentially cartoonish.
Yeah.
And also it just looks more elegant. And I think that is also really important. I wanted, Rebecca was not able to read her National Geographic, but she was able to flip through Mirador and look and see a large 8x11 of a bird that she loved and extrapolate from that. And I did mention font, and I'll go briefly with it because I can get a little bit geeky about it. Yeah, we're geeks.
I know, I love it.
So this is a really good example of our collaborative partnership. About a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, Laurette and I were talking on one of our multiple weekly phone calls, and she said, "Hey, I just discovered this font called the Atkinson Hyperlegible font, and I'm going to redesign all of my Nana's books with this font." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me more." Basically, the Braille Institute and a design company out of Boston got together. They wanted to create a sans serif font, which means like the sans serif font was like your Arial
Yeah.
fonts, very simple, as opposed to Times New Roman. They wanted to design that font and made it a little bit more legible for people with low vision. Typically, low vision readers like a sans serif font because it's a cleaner font. So they got together with the low vision people, vision scientists, things like that. They created this font. Laurette tells me about it. The Braille Institute offers it for free for commercial use.
Oh,
Go
okay.
to their website. You can use it. You can download it on Google. You can use it on Canva. They're really generous with it. And so I said, "Do you mind if I basically take your idea and throw it in?"
That's why I was calling you to say,
Yeah.
check this out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she's like, "Are you kidding? No, this is why I'm calling you, you dork." I talked to my graphic designer. I said, "It might be a little bit of a burden, but..." And she was like, I didn't have to finish the sentence. So we
Yeah.
have redesigned all of our past issues, and we have 15 of them now that are now in the Atkinson Hyperlegible font. And this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. We are constantly renovating and looking at each of our pages. And again, I want to shout my graphic designer, Tayumper, because she's
Yeah.
she's
Yeah,
amazing.
Ty.
The magazine looks beautiful, not because of me. I want to say that she does like, such a great job with laying this thing out. I do a lot of the writing, but she is really just very, very good layout.
Yeah. The design piece, it for me is interesting, right? Because I think about my background in food, and there's a science behind designing a menu, right? Where people look, the kinds of things they're looking for.
The eye
And
eats first.
exactly. And so hearing there's an even deeper level, and somebody's done the research to make that possible for those living with dementia is just fascinating. And it's kind of rewarding to hear that, okay, should this happen to me in the future, I can still read, which would be nice. I want to talk a little bit about the Teepa Snow experience. You guys were at her certification course in North Carolina, and the magazine and books that you guys have created were used there as teaching tools. So when you saw that happen, right, everybody knows who Teepa Snow is, and you saw what you created being used there, what did that tell you about the work you've done and how valuable it really is and can be for operators who are dealing with residents with dementia?
It was a really honor to be asked from Teepa to bring our publications to her training. This was a training for activity professionals to utilize our books and magazines in programming. And Teepa had been a fan of both of our publications for a little bit. And that's a huge honor when you have somebody that has been doing this for so long
Yeah.
that takes a look at what you are doing and gives it that snap of approval. It's a huge lift just professionally. Personally, Teepa was somebody early on. I think it was the second issue that we were published, and I sent to her with beer. We were standing on the envelope, and she got she actually got back to me and said that we were doing good work. And she's a fan of Lorette's too.
Yeah.
That was an honor.
She's amazing, and she's good people on top of it. So
Right.
that was a wonderful honor and experience for us, because we participated in part of the program where they brought in people from a local community. It might have been Brookdale, I'm not sure, but they had this cafe that just spanned the entire building, and then 100 people. It was amazing, and it was honestly, it was like controlled chaos, and but beautiful. And in the front, they were doing something that was very alive and interactive. And Amanda, her daughter, was orchestrating that. And in the middle of the building, Nikki and I were in there in kind of a low stim, quiet space where people could read and engage and converse in kind of a more laid back kind of a setting. And then toward the back, I was sort of a broom ball. I don't know what they were doing back there.
It was T-ball.
A T-ball.
T-ball.
They had T-ball.
Yeah.
And I think there was a little something for everyone. And I think a lot of it was
Crafting going on in the kitchen.
in the kitchen. And then her grandsons were there. So lots of intergenerational influence of people coming and going. And it was just beautiful. And that's real life. And that's how it should be. And I think that it was a little microcosm of the wider world, let's hope, where there's something. Engagement is more than just you come, this is didactic, I'm going to give you a craft, we do this. where we're coming from at Mindful Libraries is more about the being and less about the doing.
Yeah.
And there's not a product. It's just literally at your pace. Maybe you have a charcuterie hour and you have all the books out. You can relax and create and chat. Or maybe there'll be like coffee hour after, let's say, breakfast in the morning at home if you're aging at home or if you're in care. It's a nice little resource where you can go get ready for work and mom and her neighbor or her friend are sitting there hanging out with their books and their coffee, and what could be better?
Like you said, it's that
So organic.
connection,
It's
and
organic.
it's just having coffee, picking up a book,
Yeah.
and just doing my thing and relax. We've talked of like theory and story, but I think operators to really understand this, I'd love for you to kind of get into like, how can we use this, right? And so in practice, how does a mindful library look in a community or maybe a public library when the program is fully implemented the way you envision it can be?
That's such a good question. I think when people walk in the front door of a community, let's say, it sets the tone when you enter because it really gives you an idea about the ethos of the organization itself. You can see is the spend in or the priority in the chandeliers or in the decor or is it home? Are they people welcome there? And a key differentiator, I think, in this space is to have reading nook, a reading area, community room that can be all the time, not just set up and taken down, but dedicated space to a bespoke, gorgeous library that people can filter in and out at will throughout the course of the day or maybe later in the evening with their friends, with their daughter, with a visitation type of a volunteer. So we see it as just a categorical good, regardless of the setting. But I think in residential care in particular, for operators to understand that nobody's doing this.
Yeah.
People really should be doing this because it's so elemental and it really is what makes a house of homes.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And libraries have been really, they continue to be helpful in the dementia space as far as a public offering for the community for resources. And we are seeing more libraries wanting to find materials that are not only for caregivers, but also for people living with. And so,
Oh, I can give you a great example there. That's a great one. So in Massachusetts, a tiny island off of Massachusetts called Nantucket Parks Vineyard, they have people that live there year round. It's not just a vacation community. And the people that are on island, they are super isolated and very much in their homes in the winter season. So they have a really robust visitation program and they take our materials into the homebound. So they got 5 of our collections. One collection stays in the Athenaeum programs. One circulates throughout the community. People can check out the books on island. And then the other 3 collections travel to people's homes to just give them this beautiful springboard into these great conversations and really getting to know their person through the lens of what they choose, what they're gravitating toward,
Yeah.
what they're enjoying, and it changes from week to week. So I think that's a good example of just a grassroots program that's based in the library that has to do with visitation to the homebound. So let's say Visiting Angels or Home Instead, or any of these types of organizations that come into people's homes to really open that door beyond just the daily, what you have for lunch, I'm going to load the dishwasher, how have you been, medication comes around, we're going to give you your medication around 2:15. It's so much deeper than that. And we're really getting in there, having great chat and conversation, and we're tending souls. It's so much more than, let's say, if we're Meals on Wheels, bringing that meal, which is awesome. This is the enhancement of tending those souls. You're going in, you're meeting with people, and you're sitting down over a great book or a great magazine, and you're partaking in these moments.
Yeah. That's just the perfect way of like how it can be impactful, how it can be a community resource,
Yes.
and how it can still create that personal connection to reading and that passion that people have around it. A lot of times we talk about reminiscence and joy and how that's part of trying to help support those living with dementia. And there's a lot of nostalgic imagery and verse used to kind of trigger those long held memories. And so when you think about reminiscence and joy and trying to make that not just an experience, but a functional therapeutic tool, Can you each of you give me an example of how that's happened and how you've seen that with what you guys have put together?
Yeah, absolutely. Mirador really is a collection. We have a theme that we loosely corral our stories around, and we usually always have a nostalgia piece in there. But a lot of times it's art and literature and science and cooking, travel. Those are Laurette actually wrote the last travel this her recent issue. And so we really want to kind of give people lots of different choices and opportunities to have those sorts of memories. We've had a lot of readers that will tell us that I mentioned the bird with my aunt, or if there was a story about, we had a piece on cooking that was really relevant to a woman who was a home ec teacher.
No.
And she really liked reading about food, and it inspired her to continue and want to cook something. Or we have a musician, or we have something that can basically take those experiences and bring them back in.
No.
We always like to say that we really want to honor that education and the experience of the person reading the magazine, because it's vast.
Yeah.
And people have a long history of travel, of being in the community, of working, of living their lives,
Yeah.
raising children, going on trips, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to see themselves on the page is really what we're trying to do in our publications.
Absolutely.
I think I love that. And I think my angle or my vantage point is to give people that are, let's say, a hospice chaplain, or let's say somebody who's in a respite program, or like a post-acute care center rehab. These are people that are at the thin places, which in the Celtic tradition just means you were really teetering on the verge between life and passing on, and your partners, your family are acutely aware of that. And what I like to do is bring in these conversations and these faith traditions, these images that are literally mirror back at where you belong, your belongingness. Were you a lion? Were you in Kiwanis? Were you an avid golfer? Were you really, is your deepest point of pride the fact your granddad, or that you grew up in the Bronx, or whatever it is, you know, your Dega, or more? People have these really deeply held identities that we've cultivated over the course of our lifetimes. So to mirror that back, particularly, as I said, faith traditions of all kinds, mantras, and just nature, just really verdant, almost a vista into the wider world out the window when you are in a space where you don't have the ability to go elsewhere. To transcend and to take someone and to break down that fourth wall, I think such a gift, and it's something that I really strive to do. We really are intentional, like you said, with these engagements, and I think the compliment is so nice because you do bring in so much art and culture, and it's all leisure readings that people can graze at their whim and at their discretion. And yeah, so that's what we're really, and people are what we're striving to do. People come back to us and just say, I sat there with my mom and we just cried, or we laughed our faces off, or I didn't know Nikki had something in her latest magazine that is about light boxes and about photography and the early days of photography. I learned so much about that, and I only sat with that for 5 minutes, and I thought, isn't it great that we're so forward thinking? We're looking back, but we're also looking forward, and we're learning.
That's so fascinating just to hear you guys talk about all of that, because
We're geeks, we said that.
We're lifelong learners. Yeah, people are
Yeah.
lifelong learners, and it's really important for all of us, the people that are curious and want to learn about the world. People with a dementia diagnosis still want to learn about the world they live in.
Yeah.
And I think we can sometimes forget that. And so offering opportunity for people, those curious minds, to continue being curious and learning. We just had a reader whose dad found the magazine, and he was just thrilled to be able to do something that would engage that curiosity and his intellect.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, ladies, I always ask, what's the one big thing about you? But in this instance, I want to ask you, what's next for Mindful Libraries? Where would you like to see this go? And what is your plan to try and create more dementia-inclusive libraries in senior living communities and communities as a whole?
Global domination.
There you go.
Having these kind of conversations, and really appreciate you having us on to talk about this, because I think it is an underutilized reality. I don't think people think about reading for people living with brain change. And this is not just for people living with dementia. This is kind of a attitude around it where if you build something for somebody, there's lots of different people that can utilize these resources. And so we have readers that have autoimmune deficiencies that might have difficulty reading long text. We have people that are recovering from brain injury, utilizing these texts. We have people that are intergenerationally reading because we have young readers that our materials also work for.
Yeah.
They're in full enough format, but they're not dumbed down. These are not materials that are simplified to the point of feeling that they are for really young readers. So. But anyway, so yes, having these conversations, talking more about the program and global domination.
Yes.
Laurette.
Yeah.
My vision, I think, is, and I believe I know we share it, is that we want to see with the proliferation of tech, everywhere you go in senior living in particular, everyone is pivoting into the tech space. And where I'd like to see, and we are completely, we have digital libraries and are completely tech enabled. What I'd like to see is a hybrid model where print is taken in along with the digital, because as an educator, I know that what's most developmentally appropriate for this community is hands-on, minds-on learning. So you've got the kinesthetics of the turning of the pages. You've got that the hand is so beautiful in these books and magazines. We're very intentional about that. We want people to be able to not just follow along in a group reading session, because that is not what we do.
Yeah.
We work dyadically, which means two people shoulder to shoulder chatting, because that's when you have an intimate conversation. That's real. So that's something that's very meaningful to us, and I believe to all people. So I think our vision and our goal is to enter all types of communities and homes with not just the digital, I would say that's the companion, but the centerpiece is the books, magazines, and newspapers themselves. Because people, when they are living in life review, they're trying to look for common threads, and they're trying to parse what they achieved, what they regret, what they know about truths, and thinking about their life in aggregate toward the end of their lives. If they can look back at any time and just see the beautiful imagery of the world, and we can bring that in, I love the hybrid format for that reason, because it really puts the control back. Everybody, you remember how a book works.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, left to right, flip the pages. And rather than giving people a fidget, which is fine, but I think we can do so much better, because to be able to page through your magazine or page through your book, it really is something that you can go so much further with. It's not just engaging your hands, but you're bleeding off nervous energy in that way. You're really engaging your heart and your spirit. And when somebody walks on the studio, when you're, let's say, at a loss for words, you're having trouble with word finding and expressive language, you can take these engagements and you're like, wow, my mom brought me the book, and she was like, let's read this, let's hang out, or the magazine. And it really does make just the visit itself so much more relaxed and beautiful.
Yeah. No, I love all of that. So really quickly, how can people connect with you to learn more about Mindful Libraries, Nina's books, Mirador? Give us all the information real quick.
Sure. Mindfullibraries.com is the website to check out our combined offerings. MiradorMagazine.com is how you can get a hold of me, and
nanasbooks.com, or you can also get me at nostalgiaworks.com. nostalgiaworks.com. It is the digital component. And I've got a few other digital engagements that we did discuss today. And we encourage anybody who's interested to reach out, because we're very easy to talk to.
I was going to say, it's like, this is not a large
Are you guys sure? Because I couldn't tell from this that you guys are easy to talk to.
We can tailor-make a collection for community or communities. Let us know, because we want it to be that really incredible dovetail into what you're doing already.
Yep.
And we want to be a resource for you. So reach out, and we'd be happy to help.
Ladies, thanks for taking time away from the conference and being with me here on Tips from Trestle. So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.